because this Michigan team can score. It's not like there's some stagnant bunch that relies on their defense.
Welcome to the Street.
I think he can win us games. I think, thank you for your service, Cliff. But I go back and watch last year.
We've got a little baby version of Wendell White, Reggie Bush cooking with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Katron Allen runs the ball. Nobody wants to tackle him. People bounce off.
Hey, straight from the Crest listeners. Stat Guy Chris here to remind you that this episode is brought to you in part by friends over at Protocol Beverage. Made by a few dudes in Erie, PA who wondered, why doesn't zero-carb beer exist? Protocol's new light shift gives you the ultimate beer experience with 0 carbs, a mere 80 calories, and they're shifting to what light beer should be. Savor the crisp, refreshing taste without compromising on flavor. Thanks, Protocol.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Straight from the Crest podcast. I'm your host, Michael David Kresovich. It's been a couple weeks since we've last seen you. We got Big Game Beck and Garrett on the show today. First and foremost, this episode is presented by Protocol Beverage. Link in bio below. Must be 21 plus to enjoy. After one of the biggest upsets of the season last week in Columbus, Ohio, where we saw Michigan go on the road, defeat Ohio State, it opened up the door for Penn State to make a trip to Indianapolis. And now it'll be the Nittany Lions this Saturday night, 8 p.m. on CBS, December 7th in the Big Ten Championship game against Oregon. Garrett, welcome to the show today. How we doing, man?
I'm good, Mikey. Looking forward to a great week. Just it's championship week, so we get to do this one more time before we head into playoff season. But I feel pretty good. Like, I was talking to one of our mutual football buddies this week, and this is the first time in our lifetimes, I think, that we are this late in the season and Penn State's still live for a national championship. So it's pretty cool. It's probably been since '94 that we're in December and we have we're still live for it, legitimate shot for it, but we're at least still live. So anytime you're playing championship football in December, you're doing something right.
Justin, I want to thank you for coming on today. You haven't been on in a few weeks, but I also want to thank you for not only having the uniformed background, but you wore the right colors. You didn't wear green today, unlike our other host. How you doing in the area? You guys getting a lot of snow there?
Yeah, we've got like 5 feet of snow. The downtown's in a state of emergency right now. The office is closed, so everybody's working from home. Haven't been able to go out and get groceries. So I've kind of just been eating all the stuff in my freezer, but we're persevering. Yeah, I did wear the right colors. And I also was alive during the 2016 season when we got snubbed from a playoff berth. So it is the second time in our lifetime, Garrett, that we are watching Penn State play meaningful football.
I think what Garrett meant there, and I'm not
did not say that. I
think he meant the national championship hope, because we're a lock right now.
We had a national championship hope in 2016.
We did not. We were never getting in. So
they put
and we did, and we can look back at history, Beck. We didn't get in the playoffs. So this is the first time in our lifetimes that we are alive this late in the season for a national championship.
I feel like I'm on around the horn right now. I'd be giving Garrett 2 points there. But we're going to move on with the show.
You want to just
Thank you, Tony.
Sorry, just restart it.
The last time we got together was right before Minnesota, where Penn State had a little closer game than expected. And then the next week, Penn State has a battle. They had a battle in Minnesota. The next week, they come home and really just dismantle the Terrapins. Garrett, you're the Turtle expert here. Let's start with you. What have you learned most about Penn State over the last couple of weeks?
Jimmy's been on one. That's what I learned. That last drive at Minnesota, he's got a little less miles in him. I'll say that. He's a little riverboat gambler, and he's going in press conferences. He's all giddy. I like this version of James Franklin, and so what did we learn from the team? Can't start as slow as they did in either of those games as against Oregon. And so like they did against, they can't start that slow. And so it's been the story all year, which is, it's ironic because they did the opposite against Ohio State and started really fast and it didn't work out. So maybe they need to be down 14-0 in the first few minutes of the game. So again, the team they're a really solid team. I think they're a really, really good team missing, a really core group still. And so this is going to be a battle this week of a pretty incredible, a pretty incredible skill position group with the wide receivers Oregon has versus can, Kotelnicki and Tyler Warren and Aller and the running backs, find a way to match that production. It'll just be super interesting to see how that sort of offense versus offense matchup works out.
So Saturday, Justin, at the end of the 12 o'clock window after Ohio State goes down to Michigan, Penn State wins, and they have a trip to Indy. The game starts in a not so fortunate way. I always ask you this: what was going through your head when Singleton fumbled and they get the quick touchdown to begin the game last week?
Yeah, a little bit of me was like, oh no, but I wasn't super concerned about it. I didn't think that Maryland could keep it up. You don't want to go down early, and obviously against Oregon, you don't want to spot them 7 points to start the game, but I never was concerned about it. I mean, the talent gap there is pretty significant. Like, as James alluded to at the end, like, our 3s and 4s are scoring on their 1s. So I never thought the game was in question. It was unfortunate, but it didn't have me super anxious at that time. Whenever Michigan won, I think it's probably the most shocking outcome of the year for me. You don't think that that's going to happen going into it. It's like an Ohio State team that has one of the most expensive rosters in football against a Michigan team without a quarterback. And they also lost Edwards in the beginning of the game, so their running game was depleted. So I don't know how they won the game. It doesn't make any sense to me. But, we'll take the invite to the Big Ten championship game. And I think that this game means a lot to Penn State. I think it gives us good momentum going into the playoffs, because you don't want to lose this game and then have to pick right back up and say, all right, guys, season's still in front of us. You want to take that momentum. You want to also get some of the narratives off of our backs, right? If Franklin loses again, it's just going to be more of the same if Franklin can't win the big game. And if he wins this game, it's a little bit like that put to rest. It's not put to rest forever, but it's put to rest going into the playoffs, and the players don't have to hear that noise at all.
Yeah, the last 2 times these two teams met was 1995. Kajana Carter, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards, nearly on the ground, ran for 150. That was back in 95. This is the 5th time in program history the Nittany Lions and the Ducks of Oregon will meet. Penn State owns a 3-1 record. Garrett, let's just kind of jump into Oregon this year. Obviously, they snuck out the Ohio State game back in October, 32-31. They snuck out the Wisconsin game, 16-13, but they also opened up the year against a Boise State team and escaped by 3. What have you seen from Oregon this year?
Yeah, I mean, they're really explosive offensively. They're really explosive offensively when they have Tez Johnson. And the whole trio of Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Trayshawn Holden playing at receiver. They've notably dropped off when they don't have Tez Johnson playing, and so he will be playing this weekend. And so we will see Oregon at full strength. And so Dylan Gabriel is a really solid quarterback. He's very good at throwing the deep ball, and they will throw the deep ball. A big issue Ohio State had is their defense shines against a team like Penn State, who doesn't have a lot of weapons on the outside. The opposite happens when you play a team that has a ton of weapons on the outside, like Oregon does. And so I actually think, and Beck will talk more about this, I actually think that we set up more favorably defensively versus their offense than Ohio State did, just because Ohio State wants to pin their ears back, be physical, and that allowed them to get beaten over the top a bunch of times. I can't think through the course of this season how many times in the passing game we've gotten beaten over the top by anybody. JJ Smith from Ohio State didn't beat us over the top, and neither did Emeka Egbuka. They had a couple good mid-range plays, but nothing in the dagger category, if you will. So they're good at running the ball. Jordan James has rushed for over 1,000 yards this year. Noah Whittington has been very efficient. They run the ball more than they throw it, believe it or not. They're a 55-45 team. But with that being said, they've been on cruise control for the most part since the Ohio State game. They did have a tough one in Madison a couple weeks after we had played them out there, and had a lot of red zone inefficiency, which that is something that the stats don't really show it, but in a couple of their close games, they had some issues when the field got short. So and Penn State's been solid in those positions. There are times that Dylan Gabriel can struggle when he has to place the ball in zone. And so there's just little margins here and there that you look for that could lead to, an advantage here or there. And so I would just say that, while I don't know, if Penn State will win or not, I do think that the matchup is favorable to keep the game in front of them, if you will, and not. It's not like you're playing a team where you have a wild card like a Cam Ward, or a quarterback in the some of the quarterbacks in the SEC that are more dual threat. It's like if you can keep the game in front of you, then you can kind of hang around. And I think Penn State has that potential with how they play defense.
Yeah, you talked about Dylan Gabriel a little bit. He's thrown just 6 interceptions all season, but part of that red zone struggle is 4 of them have came within the 20 and below. So that would be something to look out for. Justin, both these teams they're going to be in the playoffs. Both are in. The winner's going to get the bye. Any concern for Penn State standpoint is whether they're going to maybe be too lackadaisical here, or will this be a team that's going to be motivated to kind of show the world they've been taking a lot of criticism online lately. Are the boys going to be ready to go?
Yeah, the boys are going to be ready to go. There's no way we come into this flat. I think, one, like I alluded to, I think it means a ton to us. Also, I do think that there's a little bit of it. We can't let Oregon win the Big Ten their first year here, right? So win one for the original Big Ten. I know Penn State's not an original Big Ten member, but they've been in long enough. There should be absolutely no concern about them being ready or motivated to win this game. I think that there's more to play for here if you're Penn State. If you're Oregon, obviously you want the bye. You want to win the Big Ten championship. And I don't think they'll come out flat either, but I think Penn State's playing to get rid of a lot of narratives. They're playing for a Big Ten championship that means a ton, especially to this class, right? When you think about it, this class never beat Michigan or Ohio State. I think the last time we beat them, the 2020 COVID year, we beat Michigan. But this class really doesn't have like a marquee win under them. Utah in the Rose Bowl when they were freshmen and sophomores. Outside of that, like we lost Ole Miss, we've lost all the games that we weren't favored in. Right now, on the flip side, this class hasn't lost a game that they have been favored in. So I think that this class is hungry for a big win, something to hang their hat on. It was a very touted class. We have a ton of great players that are going to go to the NFL. And I think that they're going to come out ready to play.
Yeah. Before we dive into X's and O's here, predictions and just player personnel from Oregon, just a few Big Ten notes here. Tyler Warren, Abdul Carter, first team All Big Ten selection. Second team, Jalen Reed, Kobe King. And then third team, Sal Wormley, AJ Harris there. Singleton probably, if he stays healthy, might get that spot number 1. But Dylan Gabriel, we talked about him earlier. He's in year 6 here, kind of the Sean Clifford version in terms of longevity in the game of college football. He has 31 touchdowns, 25 of them are through the air, 6 are on the ground. He's third in the country in completion percentage behind Big Ten legend Graham Mertz and Shedeur Sanders. He's thrown for over 3,200 yards, and a couple 2 names to look out for running the ball. Garrett mentioned Jordan James has over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, and Whittingham's a solid 2-back. On the outside, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, the A&M transfer, and a solid tight end in Terrence Ferguson, who has 500 yards and a pair of touchdowns there. The kicker, first team all-name kicker here, Atticus Sappington. He's 13 for 15 on the year, but he's just 3 of 5 from 40 and beyond. So that's something to keep an eye out for. On the defensive side of the ball, Mateo Ugalele, team high 10.5 sacks, and just a bunch of ballers there. Tasheem Johnson, only defensive back with more than 1 interception. He has 3. And Jordan Birch is also a guy who can get after the passer, 8.5 sacks. Great linebacker crew headed by Bassa there. It's a team that's played on the road at Michigan. They've hosted Ohio State. They return 8 starters on offense, 9 on defense. Head coach Dan Lanning, just 38. Will Stein's his OC, and Tosh Lapoy, big gritty heavy guy, is their D coordinator. But Garrett, I'm going to go with you here. I want to talk a little bit about Oregon's offense and how they match up against this Penn State defense and secondary. Who does Penn State have to look out for, and what are their keys from the defensive standpoint to really limit this Duck offense?
I think it's very important that in Penn State and Tom Allen do things a little bit differently than like Jim Knowles does, where Jim Knowles wants to kind of pin back the front 4 and get to the quarterback. And so that's what I'm comparing this matchup to how Ohio State played us and how Ohio State played Oregon, where Penn State is going to bring more in the way of exotic blitzes. Tom Allen likes to bring more pressure with the linebackers and at times corners and nickel guys and stuff. And so it's just going to depend on, does Penn State get home or even do they get Dillon Gabriel off schedule, because his efficiency rate drops pretty dramatically. It's not terrible, but he's one of the top 5 most efficient quarterbacks in the country. He drops more to middle of the pack, 50-60 range if he's feeling pressure. And so that's going to be really important. But with that said, obviously that's always a double-edged sword because of the guys that these guys have on the back end. Evan Stewart is an NFL guy. Hez Johnson is an NFL guy. Trayshawn Holden is an NFL guy. The good news is, the 2 real NFL guys Penn State played earlier this year, and Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka, they played solid against them and kept them in check. But, you cannot get, a mismatch where you have Evan Stewart on the slot going against, Kobe King or whatever. They're going to have to be very smart on who's over top of who, because you will see guys streaking open if there is any sort of mismatch. They will make difficult catches. I can't stress. The guy I've watched obviously the most of the group is Evan Stewart, and obviously as a former A&M guy, and how he was mismanaged is is coaching malpractice, honestly, at A&M. But he has found a place that he has been able to show the skill and the ability that he has, and so I can't really speak highly enough of the weapons they have, and they showed against Ohio State. I mean, they were just streaking open left and right against a really solid defense. And so obviously running the ball, they're very solid. Will Stein is a good offensive coordinator. Dillon Gabriel obviously makes things go. And again, Justin will talk a little bit more about our defense specifically against them, but it's going to be really important that we don't sit back and let them kind of dictate the pace like we let other teams do at times early in games. It's been very impressive what the team's been able to do as the game goes on. But it's very easy that Oregon can march down the field a couple times. We've seen it happen against Bowling Green. We've seen it happen against UCLA. We've seen it happen against teams who are not very capable relative to Oregon. And so I'm just interested to see if there's any philosophical change. We've asked this all year early in the game to kind of get Dillon Gabriel off his spot early. And I am sure this coaching staff watched a lot of what Luke Fickell did and what Wisconsin did to have success against Oregon. Obviously, the game was won. The game was close in the red zone, but against Ohio State, they almost lost the game in the red zone as well. And so, keep the game in front of you. Like I mentioned, I really think that's going to be important. That's something Penn State's done well. And so it'll just be important that you don't get these guys beating you over the top. Get it in the red zone, take our chances, see what happens on that end, because these guys are freaking explosive.
Dustin, this question's for you. Oregon is the only team in the country with Texas. You're the PFF guy. They're the only ones with PFF grades top 10 in linebacker and defensive linemen. The likes of Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell, Bryce Botcher, Jeffrey Bass are beasts. Does their talent concern you at all, or what's the recipe for success here for Penn State? Is it relying on Tyler Warren, what they have been, or do our lack of weapons and productivity on the outside concern you at all here?
Yeah, so obviously it's concerning. I mean, you go up against a team that's very capable in the front, and that's something you have to look out for. Now, one thing that I think doesn't get talked about a ton is Penn State's offensive line is actually very solid in pass protection. Now, I know Drew should get some credit there because he has been very elusive in the pocket. We don't give up a ton of sacks. Now, we have had troubles running the ball. Some of that could be due to stack boxes, due to the lack of perimeter threat. But against a solid front, Ohio State had a pretty solid front too. And we held up. Drew was able to navigate out of pressure and didn't take too many sacks that game. So I would expect the same thing here, even though we're going up against a very capable group. I don't think that Oregon has the same amount of talent in the back end as Ohio State does, so they might not be able to cheat and play the run like cheat the run like Ohio State was able to. So you can look for us to try and find ways to get the ball into the hands of our playmakers. Hopefully that means more than just Tyler and Nick. We've seen Omari Evans come out the last couple of weeks. He's been beating people over the top. Like, he is a burner. And if we can get Omari Evans into good situations where he can try and take the top off the field, we know Drew has the arm to get it to him. So make him play honest against us in the run. We can see how we hold up there, and just keep asking the O-line to play at a solid level, a very good level, actually, and keeping Drew clean. Obviously, we lost pretty key piece there at a right tackle with Donka going down. So Rucci's going to have to play a good game, but I'm feeling pretty confident in our ability to keep Drew clean. And then it's just going to be about winning our matches on the outside.
All right, awesome. So as we know, 8 o'clock, it's on CBS, which is a little different. Gus Johnson will be on the call. People are split about him, but
No, we're not.
there's one of them. I'm a Gus Johnson guy. But irregardless, as AG Young,
we get Uncle Gary and Brad. That's who we want.
We're going to dive into our favorite alum from Oregon, from Eugene. Garrett, I'm going to give you the first pick here. This is your segment that you're most passionate about. I'll kick off with you. You can go you, Jay, then me.
There's not a lot to pick from. I'll go Bull. Basketball player.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Sudanese native.
I'm familiar. Over to you, Jay.
Yeah.
We'll go with Kale Sonnen, undefeated MMA fighter, never lost a round.
All right, and to wrap it up, I'm going to do Peyton Pritchard, who has more points over the last 4 games than LeBron James. So now let's.
Can I change mine?
This device. Yeah. You can change.
I'm gonna go LeGarrette Blount.
Okay.
He's way more of a legend, and my name is in his name. So
a lot of similarities between you and LeGarrette Blount. But let's dive into predictions here, because I think we're all three of us. We have not discussed who's on what side, but I'm seeing lines right now: 3.5. Oregon getting favored by 3 there. I'm gonna start with Justin. Justin, who's winning this game? And first touchdown score for Penn State.
We're winning. I don't know how, and I don't know why, and I don't know if we should, but we're going to find a way to do it. We just have to. I think that it would mean a ton to the program. I think it would mean a ton to the fans, a ton of the people, or a ton of the players. And I think that they will find a way to do it just because of how much it would mean to everybody involved. First touchdown score is going to be Abdul Carter. He's going to strip it and take it back for a touchdown all by himself.
All right. I'm going to go next here. I'm going to parlay off what Justin said. I do think my model here that Stack Guy Chris drew up for me, our model likes Penn State 20-17 as for first touchdown. I think it's going to be Tyler Warren. I think obviously a lot of their game planning is going to be around him and what he can do. But I think Andy Koldenicki is going to come out with a scheme that really opens him up. It might not be early. I don't know why I picked him, but I think it's a big game. I think the reason they're there on the offensive side of the ball is because they've really unleashed Tyler Warren. So I have the Nittany Lions 20-17. I think Drew's probably going to throw a pick, maybe have a weird turnover, but I think Penn State's ability to overcome those, much like in USC, convert a couple late 4th downs. I have the Nittany Lions 20-17. Over to you, Garrett.
I do like the under, I'll say. I just think that it's going to be a lot. Now, Big Ten championship games actually tend to be pretty high scoring if you look back through. So that kind of like works against that. But, I think it's a game where the teams, they just don't know each other. They weren't expecting to play each other. I don't think the coaching staffs were expecting to play each other. So there'll be a lot of trying to like figure each other out. And so I don't know if Oregon is going to be super prepared to be able to see every single this is the Andy Koldenicki game, right? Like a team that only has 6-7 days to prepare for you, that can throw them off. And so I think that there's going to be a few things schemed up that keep Penn State around. I just think that, and with that, I think that Warren will have a big game. I really do. With that being said, I just think the trio on the outside for Oregon is just something that we haven't really seen. And so, they're better than, as a group, they are better than Igbuka, and they're better than JJ Smith combined, right? You have 3 guys over 2, and Oregon's just been so efficient when they have all 3 of them. And so I like Oregon to make a few more plays than Penn State. I think it's going to be like a 23-17 game. But I like the under. And again, Penn State's playing with some house money here. It is important they keep the game close, I will say, for playoff purposes. Having the 5 seed, we are in the absolute driver's seat to have the best position going in the playoff, and that's the 5 seed. But it needs to stay close, needs to come down the wire so that we're not penalized too much to fall behind a Notre Dame or an Ohio State, going into, Selection Sunday the following day.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know 24 hours after this game Saturday. We'll know who's where. But I'm kind of glad, Garrett, that you didn't pick Penn State, because obviously everyone knows when one show picks the same team, they lose. So thank you for your service there. But schedule for next week, viewers, listeners, subscribers, everyone, we will have a show breaking down the college football playoff that comes out December 8th. That'll be out next Thursday. And then depending on where Penn State is, we either have the preview for their home game the following week on the 15th, for the game on the 20th or 21st, or we will just keep doing, we're going to recap that first round of following week is when we'll preview Penn State. But appreciate all the support. Garrett, thank you very much. Justin, thank you. It's wild that Penn State's in this position, just because Ohio State late. They Ryan Dayed it. They Ryan Dayed it. But thank
That's
you guys
a whole
very
nother
much.
thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Mikey.
For coming on. Yep.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always.
Take care.